Okay, so Lucie, thanks for joining me for this short interview. Um, so today
Sure.
we're just going to discuss your career since graduating from Trinity College. You did your master's in digital marketing and graduated in 2019. It was last year, isn't that right?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
correct. Yeah.
And you're currently working for Mountain Productions as a digital marketing executive. And prior to that, you worked with Accenture for a period of time as well. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I guess just my first question would just to hear from your own words, what was it like trying to make, those first career decisions when you were doing your studies? How did you go about deciding where to apply, and what was your experience of job hunting as you graduated?
Yes. Yeah. So when I graduated, I was first looking at those like big giants, those big firms like Facebook and Google, and I really wanted to join them. But then when I started looking at the positions, I realized they have a lot of sales positions, but they don't really have a lot of like those digital marketing, like hands-on projects or, like very digital focused or digital
Yeah,
marketing focused roles. So what I did, I started looking also outside of these companies. I started looking at the positions in smaller companies as well. And I did apply for quite a few. And then I was offered this position with Mountain Productions as a digital marketing executive, which I really enjoy doing. I've been with them ever since, and it's a really nice position, and it's very diverse as well. So you really get to work on a lot of different projects. There is a lot of like cross team collaboration as well. We work with the US team closely as well. So it's a US company, so we work closely with their US division of the company as well. So it's very diverse. There is a lot of projects I get to work on. So yeah, it's very nice.
okay, good. So do you think if you're someone who's interested in, let's say, digital marketing, you need to kind of look a
Yeah,
bit more. You need to look outside the big tech giants, and you need to do a bit more
yeah,
digging. Is that your experience?
yeah, definitely. I mean, for a lot of people, I believe it could be a really great career to join Google and or Facebook or whichever company they choose and just pursue that career. But I would advise students to also look outside of these companies and see if there is, any other like positions they out there outside of these, because I think there is a lot of companies out there which offer a lot of different positions you could join or you could try. There is a lot more to it. Like really, there is. When I was looking for positions, I went to a lot of different interviews, and the variety of positions out there is really broad. And especially
Mm.
for if you're starting your career, I think it's a really good idea to join a smaller company as well, because you get to learn much more than in those big companies, because you get to really work on a lot of different projects. Whereas if you're going to a very huge company, you probably are going to work on a very small portion of the process. So you get to work on pretty much one project or like a small portion of digital marketing, whereas here or in smaller companies you really handle all digital marketing. I get pretty much, I'm the only person handling, well, we're three in the team, but I pretty much handle the digital marketing myself. There is a girl handling SEO as well, and we've got one intern there, but all the other like digital marketing activities I do it myself. So I had to learn all the stuff from like, every single project you can imagine within digital marketing. I pretty much was working on.
Wow. Okay, that's really interesting. And how has been the transition to working remotely? You're at home all the time now, are
That
you?
was, yeah, 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 yeah. It was, well, it was very, I think it was difficult at the very beginning, because so as I said, there is a lot of cross team collaboration at work. So getting in touch with your colleagues just on Teams or just over the phone was a bit challenging at the very beginning, to just to connect with them. But I think we settled pretty well. So now every morning we jump on a call with all our team members, and we just talk about what we are going to do that day or what we want to achieve, if there is anything we need to discuss. And so it makes our lives much more easier that way, so we can actually communicate at the very morning, and agree what we really want to do or need to do. So that's helping a lot. But yeah, I think we're all settled now. It's pretty much the business as usual, just remotely from home.
That's great. That's good. That's great.
Yeah.
And going back a bit then to say your experience of interviewing, what advice would you give to students when it comes to interviewing?
Sorry, could you say that again?
So
I
yeah,
just
so
it just broke.
uh, when it came to interviewing for Mountain Productions and any interviews that you attended, what was your experience of interviewing here, and what advice would you give to students in preparing for interviews?
Yeah, I think what is really important if you're going to interviews, just don't underestimate them, or don't underestimate your the time you take for preparation for those interviews, because I think it's really important to be prepared and to be ready to get any and every question possible. Like you can it happened to me many times. I read all those like typical questions online, you can imagine, and then you come to the interview and there is always this one single question you wouldn't expect.
Yeah.
So would advise students to expect unexpected. Just expect you could be asked anything and just be ready to answer like all possible questions you can think of. So really prepare yourself very very much for the interview. um, and also what I found quite useful was actually to kind of go over the projects you've done through your college, especially if you don't have a lot of experience from previous years. It's really good to know what you were doing at the college, because oftentimes they really ask me at the interviews if I worked on I don't know, on a Google Ads campaign or Facebook Ads campaign, and I didn't really have a lot of experience from work. So I did end up talking about the projects we did at school, and they were actually very keen on hearing about those. So I think it's really important for students just go over what you did within this master's degree, or within that year you've been studying, and just remind yourself what you actually did, and then you can talk about it in the interview as well, because they really want to hear your experience, even from your studies, not only from work experience.
Okay, so definitely focus on projects, things that you've learned through your education, extracurricular
Yeah.
activities that come up at all. Interest outside of work and college. Did they ask you about that?
Yeah, I was asked a couple of times. It I think it really depends on the company. Some companies are more interested in it, some are less. But it's always good to, if they're asking about that, to have something on your CV you can talk about. So back when I was living in Prague, I was volunteering for one NGO, and I ended up talking about it quite a bit, yeah, at the interviews as well. So especially if you have some volunteering experience, or any other, like as you said, extracurricular activities you can talk about, it's always good to have it on your CV as well, so you can talk the interview as well.
And you mentioned that you need to be prepared for any questions that could come up. Can you remember any unusual ones that you were asked?
Sorry, you broke
Yeah.
there again. Can you just,
Can you
yeah.
remember any kind of like particularly unusual questions that you were asked during the interview process that kind of caught you off guard?
And you, mhm. um, that's a very good question. I think it wasn't really like very unusual questions.
Hmm.
Well, I think it was rather like difficult questions, because they ask you, one time they asked me if I had a conflict at work environment and how did I go about that. And I didn't really have like a huge problem at work, or like a real conflict. So I wasn't really able to talk about that, because it never occurred to me. It never happened to me before. So that's what I think. It could be quite hard, because then when you tell them, well, I've never really experienced that, they're like, well, and how would you handle that situation? And then you have to make something up, or kind of make something up for them to talk about that. So that could be quite challenging if they ask you about a situation you've never experienced before, and they want you to tell them how you would go about that if you don't really have experience. such a situation. So that was a difficult question, which kind of,
Yeah, and I understand. So were quite a lot of the questions behavioral questions, like give me an example of a time where you had to show leadership or show resilience. Did you get quite a lot of questions like that?
yeah, I certainly did. Um, they did they did ask a lot of questions about my background as well. That's obvious, but yeah, there were a lot of questions on leadership, on how you handle difficult situations, how you handle difficult colleagues, or whatever it is. They also asked me quite a couple of times about my strengths and weaknesses. And what is really tricky with this question is the other one, which usually follows, is how do you handle your weaknesses, or what do you do to overcome your weaknesses? So that's quite often as well, that when they ask that, they then want to know what do you do to improve yourself, or to overcome your fears or your weaknesses as well.
Okay, so be prepared to talk about how you cope with your weaknesses and how you manage them in an interview.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's really good advice.
Yeah.
And going back another step, so did you find you had to send quite a lot of applications to get interviews? What was the kind of ratio of how many CVs you sent to how many interviews you got in return? Because I would imagine for digital marketing executive positions, probably more applications is needed than other roles.
Yeah, you're so right. You're very right. I sent out a lot of applications. I cannot really tell you the exact number because I don't know it myself, but I'm sure it was dozens of applications which I sent out there. And you're very right. I got a lot of rejections, a lot of emails saying we're sorry, but we moved forward with another applicant. So I would advise students to be ready for it, to get a lot of rejection emails, and just not don't get discouraged from it, because you will also get a lot of invitations for interviews as well. And I got a lot of invitations for interviews as well. But unfortunately, the rejection emails are there. There is much more rejection emails than those which really want you to come for the interview, which want to interview you. But yeah, I got quite a few. I think I attended maybe 10 interviews, and I was offered. So before this role, I was offered position within Accenture, but I didn't go for it because it wasn't really what I wanted to do. It was more a sales role, so I didn't really want to go for it. So I think it took me about a month or a month and a half to get this role, which I currently have. So yeah, I think it could take 1 to 2 months to get the role you really, really want.
And so you'd also say, be prepared to turn down jobs if they're not right for you and continue to go after what you're most interested in.
Sorry, could you say that again?
Yeah, so you also suggest that you should pursue the job that you really want and be prepared to actually maybe turn down options if you don't feel it's right for you.
Yeah, yeah. I think for me, it was really, so I was really looking for a position which really interests me, and which could be something I really want to do. So I think it's really important for students to really make sure what they want to do. So don't jump for the first offer they get, but really seek for what they really want to do, and maybe even start looking around already now, even though they're not probably going to start applying for the positions, just to look out there and see what is out there, and put it into perspective with their background and with what they like to do or what they enjoy doing, if it's more sales role or if it's more like digital marketing role, or what is the ideal role for them. And then start looking out there if there is something they what the companies are offering, and just start looking what they would like to pursue.
Yeah, okay, that's good advice. And I'm just curious as well, what's it like now working for in the COVID world right now? What's business like? How are companies adapting? Do you see things growing again, or are we in a sort of a stabilization phase? What are you seeing in the working world?
So I think it was or the way I felt at the very beginning of the pandemic, I felt like the world kind of froze.
Yeah.
But I do believe, and also in perspective with our marketing activities, and so I do believe it's getting back to normal, or at least partially getting back to normal.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think like it may be harder for students to find jobs or their dream roles at this time,
Yeah.
but I believe the business will get back to normal or somewhat normal very soon. I think it's picking up back again. So I wouldn't say it's a very hard time right now. I think it's getting back to what it was before.
Good. That's really good to hear.
Yeah,
Okay. That's actually all the questions I have. So thank you for taking the time to be here and answer them. So I'm going to stop the recording now if you don't mind staying online for a moment.
sure. Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.